Hi, everybody. I'm international publicist Michelle Tennant Nicholson, and I wanted to let you know about some research that I've been doing. As you know, I wrote a memoir in the pandemic about putting a pedophile in jail when I was 17 years old, and I've been told lots of different things through the years about publishing. I put myself in some structures so that I would be sure to shop the book around, make sure that I'm on the other side of the book, on the beginning side of the book. I typically get a book once it's been published and then it just needs to be publicized to the press. But on the other side, I wanted to do some research about, like, should you do indie publishing? Should you do an agent? Should you do the traditional route? So inside my structure with my writing group and my memoir group, I decided to do some research, and that was what would best benefit me. So let me tell you what I found out. So the pandemic has changed a lot of things. And I know that it's changed a lot with PR because, in particular, the press, the media, the people who make our periodical news cycles are furloughed. They're fired, and they don't have the job opportunities that they once had. So the people who are working are always looking for a story, and they're always looking for you to assist them with partnerships. So let me just say, the first thing about what I've learned about how the pandemic has changed everything with publishing is something that I have always really felt as a businesswoman, that partnership is the way to go versus competition. And inside America, where we're driven by consumer structures, we don't always think of each other as partners, but rather competition. However, in the publishing, so I listen to podcasts, and I'll put in the video some of the podcasts that I listen to and some of the articles that I wrote and some of the agents that I even listened to. And it was fun because I actually know some of the agents that I listened to in podcasts. And I was like, oh, I know John. So, but it's kind of nice to hear his advice to authors who are for the first time really looking at publishing. Here's what I want to say before I get into the details of what I found out. Here's what's really interesting for those of us who have a memoir that we're shopping. Many of us are told that there's no market. I was told, like, there's no market for memoir. That's not, blah, 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 whatever. But actually, yeah, the top markets. So what happened in 2021 was that romance is still a top market of adult, young adult, thriller, adult, young adult, and mystery, science fiction, adult, young adult. They're all the top genres. But guess what actually came in right under that as the top 5 genres? Memoirs. So people are purchasing memoirs, and it's very exciting. And the question really is should we do draft to digital print, or should you go a traditional route and get an agent and do the traditional route? So what I wanted to present, and I've got my sense of time, making sure that I don't get too verbose and chat on, is I wanted to kind of do like a history overview of the printing and publishing industry. So as a publicist, I like to talk about macro conversations, like what's the conversation at large in the world. So let's just take a look at all of printing, all of publishing from the history that when it started. So back in the day, when we had writers, when paper was made, and we had writers, and they're like, ooh, I want to actually go get my writings distributed widely on a press. So that was a handshake, right? So they would go, here's my writing, here's the press, we'll get it out. And back in the day, that could have been a newsletter, a journal, depending on what time of history we're talking about, it changes. So if you fast forward to 2022, when we have just a large amount of information being shared, the question really is how are readers reading? How are people really absorbing the stories and the content that are coming from writers like you and me? So there's different areas today, and it's gotten really gone on fast fast paced because of COVID and the pandemic. But what we've got is ebooks. We've got digital revolutions. We've got what they call indies. You've got agents, the traditional route. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest question that I'm left with after doing this research is, what's really going to serve my body of work? What's going to really serve the memoir? Can I afford to change the piece of art itself by actually engaging in a business partnership with a publishing company or publishing with an agent, a literary agent? Or do I want to go the independent route and have complete control over my piece of artwork? So I think those are the main questions to really ask. And I would love to hear from you about what you think. What I understood was that in 2021, there was a tremendous growth of audiobooks. And there's a few reasons for that. COVID was one of them, but there was also the growth, the boost of ebooks. So ebooks are also being shared more widely. Why is that? Because of the paper supply chain shortage. I remember a few of my authors that I was publicizing their books for, they kept calling like, oh, the pub date has changed because we just can't get paper to print on. So, and then there were other authors who really decided to do like a pre-launch with an audiobook or an ebook. So it was really interesting to see like how the digital world has impacted authors. Here's the bottom line though. People are still reading hard. So the readers, so if you think about the publishing industry as an industry and people who are readers, there's people who are readers and there are people who are just absorbing information quickly. But the people who buy the majority of books still want them in a hard copy form. They want to touch them. So the prediction of these experts, and there was one podcast that actually was what you should learn as a new writer in college. And it was a panel discussion by all these professionals about, well, what should be in that class. It was fascinating. I'll put the link in the description of the video. But the 10-year prediction is that there's going to be, like right now, there's a heavier demand by the populace still on hard copy books by the readers, but that in 10 years time, it's going to equal out to 50-50. So those that are still going to dominate the digital scene in the next 10 years will win out in the end, right? Because there's going to be less demand of the hard copy books and more of a demand for the digital printing. The other thing that they really talked about was the international growth and how countries like Canada, the UK, Australia, Germany, New Zealand, Italy, they're actually translating the books into digital faster than they can hard copy. And that's true. I have a client, Ken Honda, who's the Happy Zen millionaire, very, he's been mentored by the Warren Buffett of Japan and very famous there. So he wrote Happy Money. He was shocked at how long it took this book. I think it's a Simon and Schuster imprint. How long it took for years, like 3 or 4 years for him to get, Simon and Schuster. And he was like, I don't understand, because here in Japan, we go quickly. He says, I write a book and it's out to the public and it's sold and it's in every convenience store. So he didn't quite understand America's lag in actually having the books come to market. And so as that continues to change, for example, there's subscription models, and a lot of people are familiar with Amazon, and then also the other subscription services that might support authors who are trying to go draft to a digital distribution. And if all this confuses you, don't worry about it. You can listen to these panel discussions and it's a little easier to understand. But to make it simple for you, just think about that original handshake between writer and the person printing the writing material on paper. Today, it's like, okay, are you going to go straight from your draft to the publication, or are you going to include other partners along the way. So then there's also the process of the book, and many people who are embarking on the writing for the very first time underestimate the amount of drafts that it takes for a full team to really do your bring your manuscript to market. And that's what getting an agent, and that's what getting a traditional publisher is really best known for, is the polishing of the work. And they want to look at the marketability. So basically, when you're writing a proposal, what they said was you want to think about the proposal like a business proposal. So when you're asking someone, hey, hire me for a certain period of time, and what I'm going to do is bring this to the party, that's what a book proposal has to answer. And so the literary agent will take that proposal, right, that business idea, and then try to get investors. And these are publishers. So I started to think about, like, gosh, it's not unlike a venture capitalist thing, not unlike a Shark Tank, right? So if you think about the show Shark Tank, you've got the entrepreneurs going up there, I've got this great idea, and then the sharks are like, well, how much money am I going to make on it? Well, how much is it valued for, and blah blah blah. And that's the same conversations that are happening behind closed doors at these publishing houses. They want to know if my investment in getting these different editors to go through the many different phases of this book that it requires, then am I going to actually make money in return on my investment? And so that's the proposition that you're actually bringing to the party. Like, do you have a platform? Can you get marketing done? And that's what they're looking at. Like, are you actually looking at your other assets, your owned assets, your social media and different things that you own, as a way to encourage these agents and these publishers to get on your business train? Like, yeah, I'm a good investment, and here's how I'm going to make sure that your investment wins with me. So that was kind of a new way of thinking about this whole, I mean, I'd known that it was, a proposal is a proposal, but I hadn't really thought of it in terms of that piece of proposal. Once you get a literary agent, that they're going to use that deck or that proposal or whatever you're giving them as a tool in meetings to actually close the deal on your side. So then all of a sudden there was a lot of conversation in the panel discussion about, is it worth it? And like, is it our independence? And then how do you take feedback from a literary agent and a publisher who's going to naturally change the art to meet their needs? And then that's that age-old conversation with artists, like, are you going to change the art and the essence of the art to please the marketplace? And so I think that's at the end of the day, the question to ask yourself on whether you're going to go draft direct to the people, or if you're going to create all these partners to make this body of work the best that it could possibly be, and actually have it reach as many people as possible. So that's my 10 minutes. I'm going to stop the video. I'm actually recording this in a Zoom meeting with some other writers. So I'm going to stop the recording, then have a Q&A conversation with them. And if you have any questions about this or any ideas, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks so much.